How can your own daughter steal $180,000 from your retirement savings, use it to fund a luxury European vacation for her in-laws, and then tell you to your face that they're her real family? Not you. I'm Robert, 58 years old, and I found out the hard way that raising a child alone doesn't guarantee loyalty. My name is Robert. I'm 58 years old, and I spent 26 years raising my daughter alone after my wife passed away. I thought that meant something. I was wrong. It was a Saturday morning in October when I discovered what Madison had done. I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee, reviewing my bank statements like I did every month. I'm a senior software architect at TechFlow, and I've always been careful with money. Careful, but not obsessive. I live in a modest 3-bedroom house that's been paid off for years. I drive a 7-year-old Honda. I don't take expensive vacations or buy designer clothes. I save because that's what responsible people do. The first charge that caught my eye was for $14,287.50 to Air France, premium cabin tickets. I stared at it, confused. I hadn't booked any flights. Then I saw another charge, $8,140 to Hotel Ritz Paris, another one, $6,230 to Grand Hotel Monaco. My hands started shaking as I scrolled through the statement. Restaurant charges in Paris, shopping in Monaco, first-class train tickets across Europe, luxury spa treatments, designer boutiques. The numbers kept coming, and they were all from the last 6 weeks. I added them up 3 times because I couldn't believe it. $180,247.63. Gone. I called Madison immediately. It went to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I sent a text. We need to talk, now. Call me. 20 minutes later, she texted back. Can it wait? Kind of busy. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I stared at that message. Can it wait? $180,000, and she wanted to know if it could wait. I got in my car and drove to her townhouse across the city. She'd moved there 2 years ago after marrying Garrett Worthington. The place was in an expensive neighborhood with tree-lined streets and perfect lawns. I'd only been there twice. Madison always said she'd visit me instead, but those visits had become rare over the past year. I rang the doorbell, knocked, rang again. Finally, the door opened. Madison stood there in yoga pants and a designer sweatshirt, her blonde hair pulled back. She looked annoyed. "Dad, I said I was busy. We need to talk about my bank account." Her face changed. Just for a second, something flickered in her eyes. Guilt, maybe. Or calculation. Then she stepped back and let me in. The townhouse was immaculate. White furniture, modern art on the walls, everything expensive and cold. Garrett was sitting in the living room with his laptop. He looked up when I walked in, his expression already defensive. "Madison," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Did you use my credit card?" She crossed her arms. "I had access to it. You gave me authorized user status years ago. For emergencies, not for a European vacation." "It was an emergency of sorts," she said, her tone sharp. "Victoria and Garrett Sr. needed a trip. They've been under so much stress with the market volatility. It was important for family cohesion." I stared at her. "You spent $180,000 of my money on your in-laws' vacation?" Garrett stood up. "Madison's family now. The Worthingtons understand how relationships work. Sometimes you invest in family." "Invest?" I felt something cold settling in my chest. "That's my retirement savings." Madison rolled her eyes. "You just hoard money anyway, Dad. You live in that tiny house, drive that old car. What are you saving for? You're not getting any younger." "That money was for my future, for security." "You have plenty," she said dismissively. "And honestly, after everything, you owe me." "Owe you." "For making me grow up in your dumpy house with your sad little life," she said, her voice rising. "Do you know how embarrassing it was? My friends lived in real homes with real families. I had you, working all the time, never around, always tired. The Worthingtons showed me what real family looks like. Garrett put his hand on her shoulder. Maybe we should all calm down. No, Madison said, stepping forward. He needs to hear this. You're just DNA, Robert, that's all. The Worthingtons are my real family. They understand culture, sophistication, what it means to live well. You never understood any of that. I looked at my daughter, 32 years old, standing in her expensive townhouse, wearing clothes that cost more than my monthly mortgage used to. I'd held her when she was born, sat up with her through fevers and nightmares, taught her to ride a bike, helped with homework, attended every school event alone because her mother was gone. I'd worked 60-hour weeks to pay for her college, her wedding, her life, and she was telling me I was just DNA. I want the money back, I said quietly. Madison laughed. We don't have it. We spent it on family, real family. Then we have a problem. The only problem here is you, Garrett said, his voice cold. You're upset because Madison has outgrown you. That's natural. Children move on. But this aggressive behavior, showing up here, making accusations, it's concerning. I turned and walked to the door. My hands were steady now. The shaking had stopped. Something in me had crystallized, hardened. Dad, Madison called after me. Don't make this weird. Just accept it and move on. I didn't answer. I got in my car and drove home. When I got there, I sat in my kitchen for a long time, staring at nothing. Then I picked up my phone and called Jim Porter. He'd been my attorney for 15 years, handled my patents and estate planning. He was also one of the few people I considered a friend. Jim, I said when he answered, I need your help. Jim came to my house the next morning, Sunday. He didn't have to, but he came anyway. I made coffee and spread the bank statements across my kitchen table. He studied them carefully, his reading glasses perched on his nose, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. This is financial elder abuse, he said finally. Textbook fraud. She had authorized user access for emergencies, correct? Yes. I set it up years ago, when she was in college, in case something happened and she needed money. Did you ever discuss limitations? Amounts? Emergencies only. Medical, car trouble, genuine crisis, never vacations, never luxury spending. Jim nodded, still taking notes. When did Madison marry into the Worthington family? 2 years ago, October, right around this time, actually. The memory came back sharp and clear. I'd met Garrett at a company party where Madison worked. He was tall, confident, with perfect teeth, and a handshake that felt rehearsed. Old money from Connecticut. His family owned property all over the Northeast. Madison had been dating him for 3 months, and she was different around him. Quieter, more careful about what she said. The engagement happened fast. 6 weeks later, Garrett proposed at some exclusive restaurant I'd never heard of. Madison called me afterward, breathless and excited. She wanted a spring wedding, something elegant. The Worthingtons would help plan it. That's when things started to change. Victoria Worthington took over the wedding planning like a military general. Madison stopped asking my opinion about anything. The guest list, the venue, the flowers. Victoria decided it all. I was relegated to showing up and writing checks, which I did because I wanted Madison to be happy. The wedding cost $60,000. I paid for half. The Worthingtons made it clear that was expected. I remembered standing at the reception watching Madison dance with Garrett, with Victoria, with Garrett Sr. She looked beautiful and distant, like someone I used to know. She danced with me for exactly 1 song. Afterward, she went back to the Worthington table and stayed there the rest of the night. Tell me about the Worthingtons, Jim said, pulling me back to the present. Rich. Or they seem rich. Garrett Sr. ran a hedge fund before he retired. Victoria's a socialite. Country clubs, charity boards, that world. And Madison wanted to be part of that world. She became part of it. Completely. I thought about the family dinner a year ago at the Worthington estate in Connecticut. A massive house with manicured grounds, staff serving dinner in a formal dining room. I'd driven up for Madison's birthday. She'd insisted I come, said it would mean a lot. But when I got there, I realized I didn't matter. Conversation flowed around me like I was invisible. They talked about people I didn't know, places I'd never been, investments and social circles that had nothing to do with my life. Madison laughed at Victoria's stories, deferred to Garrett Sr.'s opinions, barely looked at me all evening. When dinner ended, I'd tried to give Madison her birthday present. A framed photo of her and Lisa, her mother, from when she was 5. Madison had opened it at the table, glanced at it, and set it aside without comment. Victoria had changed the subject immediately. I drove home that night feeling hollow. "We need to see the full extent of this," Jim said. "Not just the Europe trip. Everything." 2 days later, we sat in a conference room at my bank with Elena Rodriguez, a fraud specialist. She was in her early 40s, professional and direct. She pulled up my account history on her computer and started walking through it. "The first unusual charge was 8 months ago," she said. $500 at a jewelry store. Then 2 weeks later, $1,200 at a furniture retailer. Then a gap of a month. Then $5,000 at a luxury car dealership. Jim and I exchanged looks. "She was testing," he said quietly. Elena nodded. "Classic pattern. Small amounts first, seeing if anyone notices. When nothing happens, the amounts increase. Look here, 8,000, 15,000, 22,000. Then the Europe trip, which was the largest single event at 180,000, but not the total theft." She turned the screen toward us. Column after column of charges. Restaurants, hotels, shopping, travel, all over the past 8 months. "Total theft is $207,000, Elena said. "Give or take a few hundred for pending charges." The number hit me like a fist. 207,000 over 8 months, while I was working late nights and weekends, finishing projects, earning patents, living on my modest salary, and leaving my savings untouched for retirement. She was funding their lifestyle, I said, understanding suddenly. Not just the trip, everything. Elena closed the report. "I can start the fraud claim process. You'll need to revoke her authorized user status, file a police report, and sign an affidavit. The bank will investigate, and if the claim is validated, we'll reverse the charges. But that doesn't happen instantly. Could take 30 to 60 days. Do it," I said. "All of it." After the bank, Jim dropped me at home. I sat in my office, surrounded by boxes of old photos I'd pulled from the closet. Madison's childhood, birthday parties, school plays, soccer games, graduations, pictures of her with Lisa, back when my wife was alive and healthy. Before the cancer took her when Madison was only 6. I found a letter Lisa had written to Madison for her 5th birthday, a month before she got too sick to write anymore. It was in Lisa's neat handwriting, preserved in a plastic sleeve. "My darling girl," it said. "Always be kind, always be brave. Remember where you come from, and never let anyone make you forget what matters. Love isn't about money or status. It's about showing up. Your daddy will always show up for you. I hope you show up for him too. Love, Mama." Madison was 32 now. She'd had that letter since she was 6. I'd read it to her every year on her birthday until she was 18 and told me to stop. I wondered if she even remembered what it said. My phone buzzed. A text from Tommy Chen, Madison's ex-boyfriend from college. They'd stayed friendly after the breakup. He owned a brewery in the city now, and we'd grabbed beers occasionally over the years when he wanted to talk about Madison, or I needed someone to complain to about work. "Heard you and Madison had a falling out." "I'm sorry, man. For what it's worth, I warned you. She changed when she met Garrett. Not in a good way." I stared at the text. Tommy had said something similar 2 years ago when Madison got engaged. I'd brushed it off as jealousy. Now I wondered if he'd seen something I'd missed. I typed back, "Thanks. Talk soon." Then I pulled up my email and wrote to Jim. "I want full legal action, criminal and civil, whatever it takes." Jim's office was downtown in a glass tower with views of the harbor. I'd been there dozens of times over the years for patent work, estate planning, the usual things. But sitting in his conference room on a Wednesday morning, reviewing legal strategy for my daughter's arrest, felt surreal. "Here's what we do," Jim said, sliding a folder across the table. "First, you revoke her authorized user status. That's already in process. Second, you file a formal fraud report with the police. Third, we prepare a civil suit for damages. And fourth, we change your will." My will? Right now, Madison is your primary beneficiary. Everything goes to her. If you want consequences, you need to make sure she understands she's lost that. I sat back in my chair. My will. I'd updated it 5 years ago after a health scare. Everything to Madison, with provisions for her future children if she had any. I'd wanted to make sure she was taken care of, the way Lisa would have wanted. "Change it," I said. "Everything goes to the Lisa Memorial Fund for Pediatric Cancer Research." Jim nodded and made a note. "I'll draft the new will with a specific exclusion clause naming Madison and stating why." "Will that hold up legally?" "Absolutely. You're of sound mind, acting of your own free will, and you have documented cause. No court will overturn it." We talked for another hour about timing, strategy, what to expect when Madison found out. Jim warned me the Worthingtons would lawyer up immediately. They'd paint me as unstable, vindictive, maybe even mentally incompetent. They'd try to make me the villain. "Let them try," I said. "I have evidence, bank records, texts, voicemails, everything documented." After the meeting, I drove to work. TechFlow occupied 3 floors of an office park on the west side. I'd been there 23 years. Started as a junior developer, worked my way up to senior architect. 6 patents with my name on them. 3 of those patents were core to products that generated millions in revenue annually. I had a meeting scheduled with Diane, the HR director. Early retirement had been on my mind for months, even before the Madison situation. I was tired. Tired of 60-hour weeks. Tired of always being on call. Tired of pouring myself into work because I had nothing else. "Robert," Diane said, smiling as I sat down in her office. "You wanted to discuss retirement options?" "Yes. If I retired today, what would my package look like?" She pulled up my file on her computer. "Let's see. 23 years of service, senior architect level, full vesting in the pension plan, stock options, patent royalties." She scrolled through screens, calculating. "Your immediate payout would be approximately $1.3 million. That includes pension distribution, cashed stock options, and accrued vacation time. Patent royalties would continue as passive income, estimated at $60,000 to $80,000 per year, depending on product performance." I stared at her. $1.3 million? Plus your house is paid off, correct? Property value in your neighborhood is around $580 last I checked. Add your savings, investments, existing retirement accounts. Robert, you're worth over $2 million. I drove home in a daze. $2.3 million. Madison had stolen $200,000 thinking I was broke. Thinking I was just some poor old man hoarding pennies in my dumpy house with my sad little life. She had no idea. That evening, I drove to the cemetery where Lisa was buried. I hadn't been in months. I'd been too busy with work, too tired, and honestly, talking to a headstone had started to feel pointless years ago. But I needed clarity. I needed to know what Lisa would have wanted. I sat on the grass next to her grave. The stone was simple. Just her name, dates, and the words, "Beloved wife and mother." I'd chosen it 32 years ago, numb with grief and trying to figure out how to raise a 6-year-old daughter alone. "I don't know what to do," I said to the stone. "She's our daughter. But she stole from me, Lisa. $200,000. And she said I was just DNA, that her in-laws are her real family. The wind rustled through the trees. No answers came. But sitting there, I realized what Lisa would have said. She would have wanted Madison to face consequences. Lisa had been kind, but she'd been firm. She'd believed in accountability, in teaching our daughter right from wrong. Enabling Madison now wouldn't honor Lisa's memory. It would spit on it. I drove home and spent the evening in my office documenting everything. Every text message where Madison had been dismissive or cruel, every voicemail where she'd canceled plans or made excuses, every memory of being ignored at family events, pushed aside, treated like I didn't matter. The pattern was clear. This hadn't started with the theft. It had started 2 years ago when she'd met the Worthingtons and decided she wanted to be someone different, someone important, someone who didn't have a widowed father living in a modest house. At 11 p.m., I called Jim. "File the police report tomorrow," I said. "Draft the new will. I want it all documented and executed by the end of the week." "Are you sure?" "Completely." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet house. I found a card Madison had made me when she was 8. Construction paper, glitter glue, crayon drawings. "Best dad in world," it said in uneven letters. She'd given it to me on Father's Day, so proud of herself. I wondered where that little girl had gone. My phone buzzed. A text from Madison. "Garrett's family is very concerned about your instability. Victoria thinks you might need professional help. We're trying to be kind, but this obsession with money isn't healthy." I forwarded the text to Jim with a message. "Add to harassment file." Then I logged into my bank account and navigated to the authorized user section. Madison's name was still there, linked to my primary credit card. I clicked Revoke Access and confirmed. A message appeared. "This action takes effect in 24 hours. I closed the laptop and went to bed. For the first time in weeks, I slept soundly. Thursday morning, I met Elena at the bank. She had a conference room set up with documents spread across the table, transaction logs, authorization history, the signed agreement from 8 years ago when I'd added Madison as an authorized user. The conference room was cold, too cold. The air conditioning hummed above us, and I could see Elena's breath when she spoke. Or maybe I was imagining it. Maybe the cold was just inside me now. "The agreement specifies emergency use only," Elena said, pointing to a clause. "No luxury purchases, no cash advances, no unauthorized lending. She violated every term." I read the document slowly. My signature at the bottom, from 8 years ago. Madison had just started college. I remembered signing it, remembered thinking it was the responsible thing to do. Give her access in case of an emergency, a car accident, a medical crisis, something real, not first-class flights to Monaco. I signed the fraud affidavit. My hand was steady. Elena witnessed it and added it to her file. "The bank will reverse the charges within 30 days, she said. "Madison will be notified that she's personally liable for the full amount. Her credit will be destroyed. She'll be flagged for fraud at every major bank in the country." "Good." Elena leaned back in her chair, studying me. "Robert," she said, her voice gentler, "she's your daughter. Are you sure about this?" I looked at her. Really looked at her. She had a photo on her desk. 2 kids, maybe 10 and 12. A husband with his arm around her shoulders. Everyone smiling. "She told me I was just DNA," I said. "That her in-laws are her real family. She spent 8 months stealing from me while I worked myself to exhaustion. While I saved every penny thinking I was building something for her future. Yes, I'm sure." Elena nodded slowly. "Okay, just had to ask." After the bank, I went to the police station. The building smelled like old coffee and industrial cleaner. Detective Mills was waiting for me in an interview room. He was maybe 50, balding, with tired eyes that had seen too much. His wedding ring was worn thin. I wondered how long he'd been married, if he had kids, if they respected him. "Mr. Hayes," he said, shaking my hand. His grip was firm. "Elena Rodriguez sent over the preliminary case file. Before we proceed, I need to make sure you understand. If we file charges, your daughter could face criminal prosecution. We're talking 5 years in prison for financial exploitation of an elder." The word elder hit me strange. I was 58. I didn't feel old. But legally, financially, I was vulnerable. Someone to be protected. Madison had seen me as easy prey. "I understand. And you want to move forward?" "Yes." I gave my statement. 2 hours of walking through every detail. When the thefts started, how I discovered them, the conversation at Madison's townhouse, the evidence Elena had compiled. Mills recorded everything, took notes, asked clarifying questions. He asked about my relationship with Madison. I told him about raising her alone, about Lisa's passing, about working 60-hour weeks to give Madison a stable life, about paying for her college, her wedding, everything. "Did she ever express remorse?" Mills asked. "No. She said I owed her for making her grow up in a dumpy house." Mills wrote that down. His pen scratched across the paper, each word another nail in Madison's coffin. When we finished, he handed me a case number. "I'll forward this to the DA's office," he said. "Could take 2 to 4 weeks for them to decide whether to prosecute. Given the amount and the evidence, I'd say chances are good they'll file charges." "What happens then?" "Arrest warrant. She'll be picked up, booked, arraigned. Bail will be set. She'll get an attorney. The process starts." I left the station and sat in my car for a long time. The parking garage was dim and quiet. I watched people come and go. A woman with a black eye filing a report. A teenager who'd probably been caught shoplifting. Regular people having the worst days of their lives. Soon, Madison would be one of them. Part of me couldn't believe I'd just given a statement that could send my daughter to prison. But another part, the part that remembered her face when she'd called me just DNA, felt nothing but cold certainty. I had one more thing to do, one last attempt at resolution before the legal machine ground forward. I drove to Madison's office. She worked at a marketing firm downtown, some trendy agency with exposed brick and standing desks. I'd been there once, years ago, for a holiday party. Madison had introduced me to her co-workers for exactly 5 minutes before making an excuse to walk away. The lobby was all glass and chrome, modern, expensive. A receptionist with perfect makeup smiled at me from behind a curved desk. "I'm here to see Madison Worthington. Do you have an appointment?" "I'm her father." The smile faltered. She picked up the phone and called up to Madison's floor. I heard her say my name, heard the pause, heard her say, "He says it's urgent." 10 minutes later, Madison came down to the lobby. She was wearing a designer dress, heels that probably cost $500. Her hair was styled perfectly. She looked like someone from a magazine. She looked nothing like my daughter. She looked annoyed and stressed. "Dad, this is my workplace. You can't just show up here." "I tried calling." "You blocked my number." "Because you won't stop harassing me." Her voice was loud enough that people nearby turned to look. Other employees, stopping to watch. "You're embarrassing yourself." $180,000, I said quietly. "Just give it back. That's all I want. Return the money and we can forget this happened." "I don't have it. We spent it. On family. Real family." The receptionist was pretending not to listen. A guy in a suit walked by slowly, clearly eavesdropping. "Madison, please, think about what you're doing." She turned to a co-worker passing by. "Just my father having a meltdown. Ignore him." Then, back to me. "If you keep harassing me, I'll file a restraining order. Garrett's family has excellent attorneys. They've already offered to help." "I'm not harassing you. I'm trying to resolve this before it gets worse." "It's already worse. You made it worse by being petty and vindictive. Now leave before I call security." She walked back to the elevators without looking back. I watched her go, watched her press the button, watched the doors close. She never glanced back. The receptionist gave me a sympathetic look. "I'm sorry," she mouthed. I nodded and left. I drove to a coffee shop and called Tommy. He agreed to meet me after his shift at the brewery. I got there at 6. The place was busy, people laughing and drinking craft beers with names like Hoppy Ending and Barely Legal Blonde. The noise felt good, normal people doing normal things, not filing police reports or destroying their daughters' futures. Tommy came out from behind the bar, wiping his hands on a towel. He'd put on some weight since college, but he looked happy, content. He had a life that made sense. "Thanks for meeting," I said. "Of course." He sat across from me, a beer in his hand. "Madison reach out to you after your fight?" "She blocked my number." Tommy shook his head. Not surprised. "Look, I probably shouldn't say this, but the Worthingtons are broke." I stared at him. "What?" "Not like poverty broke, but they're living way beyond their means. Have been for years. Garrett's trust fund is nearly empty. The estate in Connecticut has a massive mortgage. Victoria spends money like water, and Garrett Sr.'s hedge fund took hits he never recovered from." "How do you know this?" "I stayed friendly with some of Madison's college friends. One of them is married to a guy who works in finance. He looked into the Worthingtons when Madison started dating Garrett. Wanted to warn her, but she didn't listen." I sat back, processing. "So Madison was funding their lifestyle?" "With your money." "Yeah. I'd bet anything that Europe trip was Victoria's idea. Madison's always been a people pleaser. Victoria probably manipulated her into it, probably made it sound like family duty." That made sense. Horrible. Perfect sense. Victoria dangling approval like a carrot. Madison desperate to belong. To be worthy of the Worthington name. I thanked Tommy and drove to Jim's office. He was working late, as usual. We sat in his conference room, and I told him everything from the day. "Good," he said. "Police report filed, civil suit ready to go, new will drafted. I just need you to come in tomorrow to sign in front of a notary." "What about serving the papers?" Jim smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "I have an idea about that. Madison and the Worthingtons are attending a charity gala this Saturday at the Harborview Club in Connecticut. Black tie event. I checked the society page. It's a Worthington family fundraiser. So we serve them there, in front of 200 witnesses. Maximum impact, maximum humiliation. They wanted to show off their perfect family? Let's give them something to show off." I thought about it. Public, messy. Exactly what the Worthingtons would hate most. They'd spent 2 years building this image of refinement and class. One process server could destroy it in seconds. "Do it," I said. Friday afternoon, I sat in Jim's office signing documents. The new will, clean and simple, everything to the Lisa Memorial Fund. A specific clause excluding Madison and explaining why. "Due to financial elder abuse and fraud committed by my daughter, Madison Hayes Worthington, I hereby exclude her from any inheritance or benefit from my estate." The notary was a woman in her 60s with kind eyes. She watched me sign, probably wondering what family drama had led to this moment. She'd seen it all, I imagined, families tearing themselves apart over money. The notary witnessed it. Jim filed it. Done. "Civil suit is ready," Jim said. "Process server will be at the gala Saturday night at 8:15 during dinner service. She'll serve Madison and Garrett both, since they're joint account holders." My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Mr. Hayes, this is Caroline Foster from the DA's office. I'm calling about your case against Madison Worthington." My throat went dry. "Yes?" "We're moving forward with prosecution. Filing charges within 10 days. You'll need to come in for a formal statement next week." "Okay. Thank you." After she hung up, I stared at the phone. It was real now. Criminal charges, arrest warrant, prison time. Jim was watching me carefully. "Having second thoughts?" "No," I said. And I meant it. That evening I sat alone in my house. A calendar notification popped up on my phone. Madison's birthday dinner, 7 p.m. I'd set that reminder weeks ago, back when I'd still thought we had a relationship worth maintaining, back before I knew what she'd done. I'd probably planned to take her somewhere nice, buy her something meaningful, tell her I loved her. I deleted it. The notification disappeared. Just like that. Like it had never existed at all. I spent Friday morning packing up family photos, Madison's baby pictures, school photos, awkward teenage years, college graduation. I put them all in boxes and carried them to the garage, not throwing them away, just removing them from sight. The house felt lighter without them staring at me from every shelf and wall. I called a realtor. Susan Palmer had sold 3 houses on my street in the past year. She came over Friday afternoon and walked through the place, taking notes. "You could get $600,000 easily," she said. "Maybe more in a bidding war. It's a seller's market. List it next month." "You sure? That's fast." "I'm sure." After she left, I sat in my office and called the DA's office. Caroline Foster had me come in that afternoon for a formal recorded statement. She was younger than I'd expected, maybe 35, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. "Your daughter will be arrested," she said after I'd finished the statement. "It'll be in the news, local at minimum, possibly regional depending on how slow the news cycle is. Are you prepared for that?" "I'm prepared." "The arrest warrant executes Monday morning, 7 a.m. She'll be picked up at her residence, booked, processed, and arraigned. Bail will likely be set at $50,000. She'll make bail, go home, and start the legal process." "And then?" "Trial if she doesn't take a plea deal. Given the evidence and amount, her attorney will probably advise pleading guilty to reduced charges. Could take 6 months to a year to resolve fully." I thanked her and left. Driving home, my phone rang. Unknown Connecticut number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. "Robert?" The voice was cold, refined, unmistakably Victoria Worthington. "This is Victoria. I wanted to extend a personal invitation to our Autumn Foundation Gala this Saturday evening. Madison thought it would be lovely if you could see how true family celebrates together. 7 p.m., Harborview Club, black tie. Do try to dress appropriately." The condescension dripped through every word. True family. Dress appropriately. "I'll be there," I said. "Wonderful." She hung up without saying goodbye. I immediately saved the voicemail and forwarded it to Jim. He called me 2 minutes later, laughing. "They're setting you up. Classic power move. Invite you to their territory, surround you with their people, make you feel small. Or it's an opportunity. I like the way you think. Civil suit gets served at 8:15 during dinner service. You'll have a front row seat." Friday evening, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took care of myself. I got a haircut at a proper barber, not the cheap chain I usually went to. I went to a men's store and bought my first tuxedo. The salesman fitted it perfectly, taking in the waist, adjusting the sleeves. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. "You clean up nice," the salesman said, smiling. Saturday afternoon, Jim came to my house with a folder. "Everything's filed and executed," he said. "Civil suit for $207,000 in damages plus legal fees. New will recorded with the county. Bank fraud claim finalized. Police report filed and accepted. Criminal charges pending official filing Monday morning." "And the process server?" "Professional woman named Jennifer Mills. She'll arrive at 8:15 exactly. She has photos of Madison and Garrett. She'll hand them the papers personally, announce it clearly, and leave. 2 minutes, maximum. But those 2 minutes will be seen by everyone in that room." After Jim left, I sat in the quiet house. I found a photo of Lisa from our wedding day. She'd been so beautiful, so full of life. I wondered what she'd think of all this. Would she say I was doing the right thing? Or would she tell me to forgive, to let it go, to remember that Madison was still our daughter? I didn't know. But I knew I couldn't enable this anymore. Enabling wasn't love. It was cowardice. "I hope I'm doing the right thing," I said to Lisa's photo. Saturday evening, I put on the tuxedo, It fit perfectly. I checked my reflection. For 58 years old, I didn't look bad. A little gray, a few more wrinkles than I'd like, but solid, strong, ready. My phone buzzed. Text from Detective Mills. Arrest warrant signed and ready. Execution Monday 7 a.m. Thanks for your cooperation. I drove to Connecticut. 40 minutes on the highway, then winding roads through wealthy neighborhoods with gates and long driveways. The Harbor View Club sat on a cliff overlooking Long Island Sound. Mansion-like clubhouse, valet parking, perfectly manicured grounds. I pulled up behind a Mercedes. A valet opened my door. I handed him my keys and walked to the entrance. Other guests were arriving in designer gowns and expensive suits, dripping with jewelry, laughing about vacations and stock portfolios. I walked through the doors. The main hall took my breath away despite myself. Chandeliers, marble floors, a string orchestra playing classical music. 200 people, maybe more, all dressed like they'd stepped out of a magazine. I spotted Madison immediately. She was at table 12 near the front, wearing a black designer gown and diamond earrings. Her hair was up, makeup perfect. Victoria was next to her, regal in navy blue. Garrett stood behind Madison's chair, laughing at something his father said. They looked like the perfect, wealthy family. Untouchable, above the rules that governed ordinary people. I walked toward table 12. Madison saw me. Her face went pale, then red. She whispered urgently to Garrett. He turned, spotted me, and his expression hardened. Garrett intercepted me before I reached the table. What are you doing here? I was invited. Victoria swept over, her hostess mask perfectly in place. Robert, how lovely. Please sit. She gestured to an empty chair at the far end of table 12, as far from Madison as possible. I sat without arguing. The table was silent, awkward. Madison couldn't look at me. Her hands were shaking. She kept touching her water glass, her napkin, her earrings. Nervous energy radiating off her. She knew something was wrong. She just didn't know what yet. Dinner service started. Salad, then soup, then the main course. I ate mechanically, aware of the time ticking down. At 8:13, I checked my watch. 2 minutes. Madison tried to eat but couldn't. She pushed food around her plate, took tiny sips of wine, laughed too loudly at Victoria's stories. 8:14. I folded my napkin and placed it on the table. Madison's eyes flicked to me, then away. 8:15. A professional-looking woman in a gray suit appeared at the table. She walked directly to Madison. Madison Worthington? Madison looked up, confused. Yes? You've been served. The woman handed her a thick envelope. Then she turned to Garrett. Garrett Worthington? What is this? You've been served. She handed him an identical envelope. The table went silent. Then the tables around us. Silence spreading like ripples in water. Madison opened her envelope with shaking hands. I watched her eyes scan the first page, then widen, then fill with tears. Civil action for fraud and financial elder abuse, she read aloud, her voice breaking. Plaintiff Robert Hayes versus defendants Madison Hayes Worthington and Garrett Worthington, seeking damages of $207,000 plus legal fees and costs. Her face drained of color. She looked at me across the table. Dad. Victoria snatched the papers from Madison's hands. She read quickly, her composed mask cracking. This is hardly the time or place for family disputes. You invited me to see how real family celebrates, I said, my voice calm and clear. I thought I'd show Madison what real consequences look like. Garrett stood up. You're out of line. I'm not done. I pulled out my phone. Madison, you should know the DA filed criminal charges yesterday. The arrest warrant is active. Police will execute it Monday morning at 7 a.m. Madison's voice came out strangled. What? Fraud. Financial exploitation. The police have everything. Bank records, transaction logs, your texts, Your voicemails? I'm your daughter. You told me the Worthingtons were your real family, I said. I'm respecting your choice. I pulled up the recordings on my phone. Madison's voice played clearly in the silent hall. Victoria thinks you need professional help. We're trying to be kind. More guests had their phones out now, recording. The video would be online within the hour. I've removed you from my will, I continued. My estate, approximately $2.3 million, now goes entirely to the Lisa Memorial Fund for Pediatric Cancer Research. Garrett's face went white. You're bluffing. You don't have that money. Senior software architect, 23 years at a Fortune 500 company, 6 patents generating substantial royalties, full equity. I own my house outright. I live modestly. I saved everything. I looked at Madison. For her. Madison stood up, tears streaming. You're not broke? I looked at Victoria. How much of that $180,000 trip was for your benefit? First-class tickets for 4 people, presidential suites, your name on half the hotel reservations. Victoria's face turned to stone, but I saw the flash of panic in her eyes. Dad, please, Madison was saying, her voice breaking. Please don't do this. Don't call me that, I said. You told me I was just DNA, remember? I didn't mean it. Yes, you did. And for 8 months, you stole from me while I worked 60-hour weeks. While I saved for retirement, you funded their lifestyle. I stood up. The bank has reversed all charges. You're personally liable for $207,000. Your credit is destroyed. You're flagged for fraud at every major bank in the country. Garrett grabbed his phone. We'll pay it back. Drop the charges. Too late, I said. This is a criminal matter now. The DA doesn't work for me. I started walking toward the exit. Madison followed me, crying openly now. Dad, wait, please. I'll do anything. I'll get help. I'll change. Just please don't do this. I stopped and turned to face her. You had 8 months to do the right thing. You had your mother's letter asking you to stay kind. You had me raising you alone for 26 years after she passed away. You chose this, Madison. Every single charge, every single lie, every time you called them your real family, you chose it. Dad, your mother would be ashamed of who you've become, I said. I am too. I walked out of the Harborview Club. Behind me, I heard Madison collapse, sobbing, Victoria's cold voice trying to calm her. Garrett on the phone with lawyers, guests whispering, phones filming, the scandal spreading in real time. I gave my valet ticket to the attendant and waited for my car. The night air was crisp, clean. I felt lighter than I had in months. My car arrived. I got in and drove away, leaving the Worthingtons and their perfect world in my rearview mirror. Monday morning, 7 a.m. My phone rang. Detective Mills. Arrest completed, he said. Your daughter was picked up at her residence. She's being processed now. Thank you for letting me know. I hung up and stared out my window. Madison was in a police station right now. Fingerprinted, photographed, booked. Her mugshot would be public record. Her name would be in the system. Part of me felt sick. Most of me felt nothing. 2 weeks passed. I moved through the days like I was underwater. Work, home, sleep. Repeat. I put the house on the market. Offers came in within 3 days. I accepted one for $610,000. Closing date set for next month. I found a new condo downtown. Smaller, modern, minimalist. No memories, no ghosts. Just clean lines and empty space where I could breathe. My phone showed multiple blocked numbers trying to call. Madison, Garrett, Victoria. I never answered. The voicemails piled up, begging, angry, threatening. I saved them all and forwarded them to Jim. The news picked up the story. Marketing director faces fraud charges after stealing from father. Local news ran it for 2 days. Someone had uploaded video from the gala. It went semi-viral in wealthy Connecticut circles. Madison's company placed her on administrative leave. Garrett's investment bank did the same. Too much bad publicity. The Worthington name was synonymous with scandal now. 3 weeks after the arrest, Jim called. "Settlement offer," he said. "The Worthingtons want to pay $250,000 plus issue a public apology. In exchange, you ask the DA to drop charges. Tell them no. Robert, tell them no. Let the court decide." "Okay, your call." I moved into the condo on a Saturday. The movers finished by noon. I spent the afternoon unpacking. I hung one framed photo on the mantel. Just Lisa. Not Madison, not family portraits. Just Lisa, smiling, forever 26. "I kept our daughter safe as long as I could," I said to the photo. "But some people have to learn the hard way." 6 weeks after the arrest, I got a notification from Jim. Court date set. Madison's hearing. I didn't have to attend, but I could submit a victim impact statement or appear in person. I decided to appear. The courthouse was downtown, old stone building with metal detectors and tired security guards. I found the courtroom and sat in the back. Madison was already there with her attorney, a sharp-dressed man who looked expensive. Garrett sat behind her. Victoria was absent. The judge called the case. Madison had taken a plea deal. 1 count of fraud, reduced from 3 original charges. She stood when the judge asked how she pleaded. "Guilty, Your Honor." The word echoed in the quiet courtroom. Guilty. The judge looked at me. "Mr. Hayes, you have a victim impact statement?" I stood up and walked to the front. Madison's eyes found mine. She looked terrible, thin, pale, dark circles. She'd aged 5 years in 6 weeks. "Your Honor," I said, my voice steady, "I don't want my daughter in prison, but I do want her to understand that actions have consequences. For 32 years, I protected her from those consequences. I won't do that anymore." The judge nodded. "Thank you, Mr. Hayes." Sentencing. 18 months probation. 200 hours community service. Mandatory financial counseling. Full restitution of $207,000. Payment plan to be determined by the court. No prison time. But the record would follow her forever. Background checks. Credit reports. She'd carry this for the rest of her life. As the judge dismissed the court, Madison turned to me. "Dad!" I walked past her without stopping, out of the courtroom, down the steps, into the crisp autumn air. Behind me, I heard her calling. I didn't turn around. I got to my car. My phone rang. Jim. "Settlement finalized," he said. "Bank recovered full amount. Restitution order filed. New will officially recorded. Civil suit resolved with judgment in your favor. It's done, Robert." "Good," I said, and hung up. I drove to my condo, parked in my designated spot, took the elevator to the 4th floor, unlocked my door and stepped into the space where no memories waited. No photos of Madison on the walls, no reminders of who she used to be. Just me, just Robert, not dad, not victim, just a man who'd done what he had to do. I stood on the balcony watching the sun set over the city. My phone buzzed, unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. 10 minutes later, another call. Then another. I turned off the phone and went inside. In the morning, I'd check the messages, deal with whatever came next. But tonight, I just wanted to stand in my quiet condo and feel nothing but peace. I'd spent 26 years raising a daughter who told me I was just DNA, who stole my retirement savings to impress her wealthy in-laws, who called them her real family. And now she was facing the consequences of those choices. Not because I was vindictive, not because I wanted revenge, but because enabling her would have been the cruelest thing I could do. Some lessons you have to learn the hard way. Madison learned hers, and I learned mine.